everyone for joining us today. We are here to talk about a very important topic today, women in the field of analytics. And I promise you, we will not put you to sleep. So by the end of this talk, you'll still be awake, and hopefully, everyone will still be happy and ready to go. So, but thank you for joining us today, and we are just really, really excited to be here. And thank you, everyone, for making time to stay with us today. And we'll have a Q&A afterward as well. So.
Yes. So let's get started about women in analytics.
So just briefly, I'm not going to talk through this, okay? There's information about me on the website. They just talked about some of the highlights. I started the first business analytics area for Aflac, and it's been a really exciting journey, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that through this presentation today.
Okay, I have about 23 years in analytics, long before it was the buzzword to be in this field. I've done a variety of roles out of India, mostly in marketing analytics and risk analytics. And here we are, Heather and I, to take you through that journey and dispel some myths about how many women there are or there are not in analytics. So this is something you encounter when you say, I do modeling. And we both learned, I think, the hard way.
Yeah.
Everybody tends to think it's of the ramp variety. And I think, though it's been 23 years, I'm sure new analysts don't get this. But I have definitely got that in my career. You do modeling, so I no longer say I do modeling. I either say I'm a statistician or I say I'm a data scientist. Heather.
Yeah, I have a funny story about this too. So one of my analysts that were working for me several years ago, we were having a round of introductions in a meeting, and we were having to say what we do, what our title was and all that. And he goes, yeah, my name is Mark and I do modeling. He's this big burly guy. Who's going to think he does modeling? So people actually said, you do what? They didn't get it. They weren't like us. So, which is really silly what they, think modelers do.
So what is analytics today? What does it really mean? What does data science mean? Is it different from analytics, different from reporting? We believe it's the confluence or the intersection of both science and decision making. It's not about reporting. It's not about publishing facts. It's getting insights out of those facts. Many a time we see presentations that have reported data on them. Yeah. Anybody can read a report, or most of us can read a report. What is it that comes out? And that's the part Heather will tell you about. She is in that field of marketing. She is in the field of decision sciences.
Yeah, so often I would see analysts over the years that would send a report out and say, here's your information for week 52, or here's your information for the month or quarter. Okay, what does this mean? Why are we seeing the results we're seeing? What are the trends? What's going to happen in the future? It's really about driving positive performance for business. That's what analytics is all about.
Yes. So here are the numbers, and here is the story. So Heather's going to talk about, are there enough women in analytics in the US? If there are, where do we find them and what's their journey? I will discuss what the Indian perspective is.
Yeah, so just real quickly here, you can see the numbers on the slide. From a academia standpoint, when you look at statisticians, 53% are women in the US, so quite a big number there. When you look at actuarial degrees, which is more of the traditional, like what Anu was talking about, this was how analytics started out, you're looking at about 40%. And then the American Statistical Association, about 33% are women.
Yes, so what happens in India? I passed out of Lady Shri Ram College in 1990 with a degree in statistics. There were 45 women in that class, and that's the trend in most other universities in India. So there is no dearth of women doing economics, statistics, computers. In fact, in that era, there were no careers in analytics per se, so most of that class left to do an MCA. It's called Masters in Computers, yeah? So there is no dearth here, guys. There are other reasons why you don't see them, but there are enough women in India doing these degrees that are analytical in nature. However, obviously, India has its own challenges. The number of working professional women in India tend to leave earlier than women in the US. They don't continue their journeys or their careers. There is a complete lack of awareness or confusion about what is the degrees you need, where do you go and do this analysis, what are the industries. So a lot of times colleges come and ask me about, hey, can you have a talk and tell them that this is a booming career? Can you tell them what degrees they need to do? So that is Indian reality. And obviously, both in the US and in India, there is a serious lack of visibility for these women. There is Heather and I standing here. Between us, we have 50 years of experience in a field that today is the buzzword. So it is a myth that...
It's the sexiest job in the 21st century,
absolutely,
right?
When people say that, then it becomes a buzzword. So the point is that in both these countries, India and US, there are enough women getting the degrees, there are enough women coming in. So then what happens later, and what have been our journeys in this field?
So in terms of interest, okay, I've always been a problem solver. I've always enjoyed looking at where there's conflict, breaking it apart, really getting to the root of what's causing the problem and solving it. I've always been known as a storyteller too. So from the time I was a small child, I really loved getting people interested in a message and really conveying that in a way that entertained people too. So that was just something that I really enjoyed, despite being the introvert that I am. So at heart, I'm an introvert.
Yeah, so Heather and I did our slides independently and then kind of fused them. But if you see, we are saying the same things, which is this word called storytelling. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to deeply look at why people do the things they do. So that was what I'm interested in. I have a literature background, contrary to most people who think that women in analytics just come from math or computing. Mm-hmm. My background is in English literature, but I had math with it. And the only reason I had math with it is the other two options were really physical education and commerce, which I didn't want to do. And basically, there was a need to analyze people's behaviors. Why do they buy something? Why do they act a certain way? So that was the initial start of, hey, is there a possibility that we could do careers in which you could actually do this?
So from an education standpoint, I actually started out in the field of psychology. I loved really understanding, as Anu talked about, why do people do what they do, what makes people tick, okay? And my favorite coursework was statistics, research method, test and design, so anything to do with the hardcore analyzing the data, I just really thrived in that, and I really enjoyed it. Later on, I went on to pursue a master's degree in computer science, and at that point, I was focused on understanding data structures, databases, user interface design, and really looking at it from that perspective. I took a little bit of a turn and then pursued an MBA. And honestly, I did that because I had a boss that said, look, if you want to get into leadership, you're going to have to get an MBA. But by that point, honestly, by the time I got into the program, I'd already made it into leadership and thought, I'm just going to keep doing this thing because I think it's a good one to have. And then finally, okay, so I told you I started the first business analytics area at Aflac, and I saw the direction of where analytics was headed, advanced analytics, and knew that a PhD in computer science and software engineering would really help me build the maturity of the organization so that we could be doing more predictive and prescriptive analytics, text analytics, machine learning, and so those were my areas of focus.
If you'll see the stories are parallel, though Heather and I met like about 3 hours ago in person. But if you see the theme in the stories, they are quite parallel. She said she was told to get an MBA if she wanted to kind of really progress in her career. I went running the other side because everyone I knew was getting an MBA after doing a statistics degree. But mine was much more pragmatic. This was India, remember, not the US. So financial independence, you cannot get that from literature. My mother is a writer and she made no money in her life. So financial independence was the key to, moving forward with not taking literature. Of course, the big Indian career debate at college level, what should you take, what degrees, etc., etc. Statistics was fundamentally the choice because I would not get into boarding school. And my poor parents thought I would have to be a paying guest at 21, and they were horrified. So I couldn't get into boarding school. The only way I could get into a boarding school and stay there was statistics. I'd love to say it was, it was an acceptable choice, but it was not that I jumped at it because of anything else. It was a nice marriage between data, hypothesis testing, and I thought that with with literature, I might be able to do better at it than pure math or economics. So at that point, like Heather said, she's interested in people. I'm interested in really applying statistics. The only jobs in India that applied statistics were those of professors at that point.
Okay, skills needed to do well. I'm sure you guys know this, but obviously statistics, math, computer science, those are sort of the hardcore skills that we know we need to succeed in this field. But it's not just about that. It's really about interpreting the information. Facts are not the insights, okay? We've got to take the time to synthesize what the information is telling us and make meaning of it and really drive action. Curiosity. If you're not asking why, then why are you in the field? That's what we have to be doing constantly. And of course, programming and packaging the skills. It's packaging the information together. How do you tell the story with what you're sharing?
So the important point Heather made here is, if you notice, the programming and packet skills came at the end, and there is a reason for that as we tell our stories. The other skills we believe is more important, having the right degree, though today you really don't know what the right degree is, because I've had people in data science or analytics that are from physics. So, it's more about, like Heather said, curiosity, interpretation skills. If you have the right degree, good for you, but if you don't, you can still be an analyst or a data scientist. In the 1980s, there were no programming skills. You had to do specialist programming skills if you were outside of computers. So we've done Fortran, C++, etc. But today's culture of data science tends to lay more emphasis on the programming skills, while we believe that it's a synthesis of skills. It's not about, how good a program you can write. While it helps to extract data and a lot of things, it's what you bring to the table in the business that eventually counts.
So we come from different backgrounds. We've got different experiences. And I know I'll let you just talk through, some of yours as well.
Okay. So what are the careers you can make, and what are the industries? I would say everywhere. At one point in our journey, we didn't have enough data. I started in market research. You didn't have enough data, so you had to take samples to estimate the population.
Yeah.
Today, you are in a big data world where there is no sample. You have the whole population. So the challenge is different. So careers, I would say everybody will need to look at data. Yeah, whether you're a market researcher, whether you're a chemist, everyone will need to look at data, even if you're looking at Google data, but you'll have to look at data. So there is no end to this. My son, who's 9, codes in Python in grade 4. So that is where the world is really moving. It's unlimited, this space. Everybody needs to analyze the data and make decisions based on data rather than what we call gut feel.
Yeah, and like Anu said, it really is for every industry, whether you're in business or whether you're nonprofit, because you're trying to drive results in the end. And it's just really important to, because the demand is there, that we really need to ensure that we are including women in the discussion, getting more women out there as well.
Okay, so this is the important question, and this is taking the bull by the horns.
Yes.
We believe that these are the reasons why women are not visible in analytics. We don't say not there in analytics.
Right. Yep.
They are hidden. They are doing all the work. They're probably not coming up to the dais like Heather and me. They're not asserting themselves, or, they're simply hidden. I know enough women in analytics who do great work, but they're simply not visible.
Cultural norms, are they impeding visibility? You think about the different degree programs. I showed you some stats on statistics and math and actuaries and things like that. Computer science is obviously a field that is taking the bull by the horns when it comes to analytics. And this field is unfortunately just not represented by enough women. But we can't let that impede women joining the field of analytics.
So the conferences, there are 60 speaking sessions with 7 women. Yeah, so they're not invited to
numbers don't lie.
Conferences. Numbers don't lie. I actually did that math. The fact is there are many women. What we would like conferences to do is reach out to senior women and ask them, and they'll give you 10 names of women doing great work who can then be put up here and be speaking next time I hope. So it is about inclusion, really. I mean, we have to walk the talk. Heather and I have to make sure there are enough women on those conferences. A lot of you here have to make sure that if you know great, talented women in analytics, you should be really calling it out.
I talked about this a moment ago. Our data science, programming, and computing skill careers dominated by men, overshadowing the visibility of women, and I think so. I really do. We know that the percentage of women that are enrolling in these programs are actually declining when it comes to looking at STEM and computer science actually being the field where women are seeing a decrease in representation there. So we can't just hold computer science as, oh my gosh, you've got to, if you don't have this, then you're not going to be able to make it in the field of analytics. So it's just something to think about.
No, it's an important point. Today you hear the word data science and programming, data science and programming. Yes, programming is a part of looking at data. It's not the whole part. And I think there are, there is a male culture in programming that kind of makes women less visible. All we are saying here is the fact that data science as a buzzword, is a more recent one. We've been doing data science for the last 23 years, but nobody's noticed. So I think every time you hear this, it is up to all of us to really say, hey, programming's great, and I program, but however, there are many other parts to analytics or even data science. So, these are some of the things that we think are, changing the narrative to there are not enough women. I keep hearing this from HR managers, where do we look for them? Where do we hire them? In India, for instance, it's similar to any other skill. I mean, women leave workplaces in India for the same reasons as analytical women leave workplaces. So it's not about analytics, it's about a larger problem.
Yeah, and I'll just say one final thought on this whole computer science thing. I mean, if you look at what the jobs of the future are, look 20 years out and see what are the jobs of the future. By then we'll have automated so many things that today we won't even think about, and there'll be jobs out there that don't even exist today. So jobs of the future are going to require a lot more creativity, flexibility, and I think it's going to be actually less on computer science if you look far enough into the future, because all those modeling techniques and things will be completely automated. In fact, there's a firm out there now that can produce 200, 300 models in a matter of minutes and tell you which model and which technique was the most optimal to use. So even the aspect of modeling has been automated.
That's a good point, Heather. So these are some slides on what the numbers say. So contrary to a lot of myths floating around, women actually have a better footing in analytics. They may be calling themselves researchers, which a lot of women do, research analysts, but they are still in the data science field. They have degrees in math, computing, psychology, physics, and if you read about the top 10 women in the US who are considered one of the pioneers in data science, a lot of them have physics, statistics, and math as PhD degrees. So the myth is that they're all leaving, they're all going, right. They're not entering. Yeah, that is not true.
So we have there's a complex set of cultural norms that are out there, and I feel that that's what's really holding women back. We've got these cultural sort of expectations and perceptions of what women should be, what women should do, but I think women need to decide that for themselves, okay, and not let society say that. We also have sort of this rise of the data science culture, and it is dominated by men. I mean, the statistics don't lie on that when it comes to the computer science discipline, so we really believe that that's what's driving a lot of it, but we can change it. So on the other hand, as I mentioned, computing, while women are represented half in the field of analytics, computing is the only STEM component that has experienced a long-term decline in women's participation. So, all right, we've got some shout-outs here.
Yes. So we put these names up, and there are many, many, many more, and Heather will talk through some of the names. These are all some of the wonderful, talented women that I have had the pleasure to work with, and there are many more. The page is not enough. We wanted to put the LinkedIn profiles, but it didn't just fit on the page. But beautiful, beautiful women. Rajshri Dave, my mentor in my market research days. Louisa Bosson, she during my RCI stint. Dr. Radhika Kulkarni, she's with SAS. Aparna, who's like a qualitative researcher. Many of us don't even think that qualitative researchers are like analysts. We think, oh, they just listen to, do these interviews and focus groups. They're also analysts. They are actually analyzing and transcribing what we call text data today. Absolutely. So once upon a time, it was voice data, and these people made these, they recorded it, and then they played it back again and again and made notes. So today, customers type that data, and it's become the buzzword text analytics. So a call out for all these women, talented, wonderful, and very, very qualified. Heather.
I'll just mention one, Meta Brown. She's actually the one that puts out a lot of these stats on needing to get more women out here and what the stats look like in terms of, there's actually a lot of women out there in analytics. We talked about there being half of the population, analytics population, being made up by women, and she has a master's degree in engineering. She got it from MIT, and so she's been doing this for a long time and really trying to spread the word to get more women involved.
Yes. So this is a good topic, and we can go on and on and on. So let's talk about some things. So having women obviously is a good business strategy. Every research in the last 10 years has proven that having a more diverse workplace increases the revenue for the company.
Right. So championing inclusion and explaining internally why gender balance is, and at its core, a savvy business strategy, as Anu said. Using analytics to track and correct issues. Keep a tab on who comes in, who gets promoted, moves sideways and leaves. We've got to use analytics to track this information, report it out, and make sense of it.
Yes, absolutely. You won't know till you actually look at the numbers.
What gets measured gets managed.
Absolutely. Yep. And there are companies who have done this and been able to see what represents the glass ceiling for women. If they are moving sideways or leaving at a position, then that is the position to fix for. If you won't know, there are general statements, biases, this whole general view of why women leave. Let's not look. We have enough data today. Let's collect the data and let's address the problem. Okay, so we need smart interventions, and I'll give you an example. A woman leaves to have a baby. She's an analytical researcher. After 2 years, she wants to come back. What we do is we look at her coming back or going out in a linear progression. So we say, 2 years, she wasted herself. So somehow her beautiful Python skills have evaporated. That doesn't mean anything. They haven't evaporated. My son can learn Python in grade 4, somebody who's done it for tens of years.
Come on.
But that is how we look at it. So smart interventions basically are, she still has the same skills. We have to look at her journey in a non-linear way. It's similar for job descriptions. We'll take these male job descriptions, and then we'll say, he's got 4 languages and she's got 3. It doesn't work like that. What is it that you are looking as the final outcome? So these are some of the smarter interventions rather than just saying, they all leave and, let's not recruit them because they don't come back, or, she's not ready for this role, but I don't want to coach her. So, really smart interventions using data. And Heather, if you have any more ideas.
No, I just say on this last one here about holding everyone accountable, I think this is very important. And I just want to say something here because we've been working with Scienaptic for a short period of time here, a couple of months now. And I got to tell you, I have been very impressed and amazed at the distribution of women that they have on the team working with us. So as a business in the U.S., reaching out to a partner here in India and seeing the representation of women, and not only women in analytics, but women in leadership.
Yes.
Women in leadership. Can I get a round of applause here for Anu? Okay.
Thank you.
This is it speaks volumes. Our company in particular is very, very cognizant of ensuring that we have diversity and our partners have diversity. So doing business in the U.S., it's really requisite to ensure that we're representing that in India as well.
Thank you, Heather. We appreciate it. And I think the last piece is really important. Every woman in this room and every man needs to walk the talk. That means if you say that you believe that there is talent out there, every time you see good work at your workplace done by a woman, you need to shine the light there. So many of us get caught in this whole Indian competitive thing that, you've got to pull down someone to get ahead, and that doesn't work. There are very few women who get visibility, so each of us have really to do the job. Inclusion means you walk the talk. It's not about a conference. It's not about saying, oh, I really believe in it, and then there's this talented woman in your team, and you say, you know what, she came late 2 days. So let's not remember those things. Let's remember what's important. She has the same degree as a male. She has worked long and hard as anyone else. She's as talented in a field which requires a really heavy lifting in terms of brain power. Let's start shining the light and walking the talk.
Yeah, and I would just add that, it's important for women to help other women and mentor other women. And if you're in a position to help another woman, do it. So it's not just about women helping women, but men as well.
Many CVs that I see of women underplay their skills, So writing your CV in a manner that resonates with what the market wants, that gets you in the door to the interview. That's the first thing. The second is, don't downplay your technical skills. At the end of the day, Heather and I solve a business problem. No amount of beautiful models, if they are not deployed, solve that problem. So technical skills, nowhere are we saying technical skills are not important. You've got to learn to code better. You've got to learn more, new languages. But it doesn't take away from the fact, can you, for instance, and I interview every day, can you take a business problem and translate it into an analytical plan? If you can't do that first, you're not going to have an analysis that's really strong. Do you know how to do hypothesis testing? These are basic things, and these are things you should talk about in your resumes. Do reach out. I'm here, Heather is here. We have certain email IDs. If you're struggling and want to get back, we are happy to help you write a good resume. I mean, that's the easiest thing to do. But I'm saying to you, I think you have 2 points. The points you have are, one is there are women who have taken off and want to come back, and what are the options for them and how are they competing? And the second is, technical skills seem to be at the core. If you've done a career in analytics, it could be reporting, it could be anything. You are an analyst. I think you have to treat yourself as that. If there are skills that you need to learn, in my journey, there were no Coursera's of the world. There are Coursera's. You can teach yourself. You can form a group and get to someone who has done it. So if you need the connects, I'm there, but a simple answer to a more complex one. But all I will say is, beef up the resumes, don't underplay skills. Don't say because there are 10 men standing there who are better programmers than me, I won't get the job. That's not correct, actually. So I think many women tend to underplay their skills on resumes, especially that for instance, the difference is, if I've done 2 years of R, the difference between a male and a female resume in my experience has been, he will say, I'm a stud in R. You will say, you know what, let me not even write in case I get tested on R. I think that is where the key difference is.
Yeah.
It is. And it could be a gender nuance, it could be the way we project ourselves, but women will leave R out of that resume. And
there are data to support that as well.
Yes, there is data to support that. A man will say, you know what, I can code like a stud, which is great. I think that's overconfidence, but that's a better parameter.
Yeah. You gotta have it.
Versus leaving R out of your resume because you may get tested on some module of R that you didn't know. So I think for me that really is the key, and recruiters can sense this. If you're going to say, oh, you know what, you asked me this question, but I only know what do you think is going to happen? So I think that's where lies, in my experience. Heather may have a different one, and Heather, you can talk to it, but in my experience, that is really what it comes down to.
Anyone looking to, enter the field of analytics, I always point them to Coursera if they haven't, gone through formal business analytics training. But from a job description standpoint, we have, obviously it's hard to get someone that has the full entire package, because that's almost what you need to have. If you've got a team of people working together, then it's easy to kind of fill those different skill set gaps that you need. But from an individual standpoint and the job description standpoint, I've sort of relaxed, I don't want to say relaxed my requirement for programming, but if majority of the skills there I'm looking for, then I'll be likely to consider that individual. So I don't decline resumes because someone doesn't have a degree in computer science or doesn't have computing skills from that standpoint with advanced, because you don't need advanced machine learning if I'm hiring someone that's an entry-level analyst doing diagnostic work. You don't, it's machine learning. They can learn that over time. And the way I've actually built the career progression in the organization is that we start out from the level of analytics maturity to say, okay, entry-level analyst does very descriptive reporting, what's happening, what happened year over year, what's happening compared to target. And then the next level up is the diagnostic. Why are we seeing the trends we're seeing? And then the next level up is what's probably going to happen in the future. And then the next level up is optimizing and saying what's the best that can happen for us and what do we need to do to get there. So I've staggered the levels out that way and have a really good career progression plan so that you can start learning those things while you're in the lower level, and then once you demonstrate that I've got these skill sets, you can easily get promoted up in the organization. Yes. We're both on LinkedIn. Connect us on LinkedIn. So thank you everyone for your time. We appreciate you.